Okay.
Well, I was about 50 years old when I got married and spent a few years in Miami, and then we moved up to Duncan Memorial Camp in Okeechobee. We neither one had been alcoholics, but had a lot of sympathy for a man that was hooked on alcohol. We moved up there and we had a nice little house that Brother Mickey let us live in, and Edith worked in the kitchen. She did the cooking for the men, and she taught them how to cook, short order cook. And a lot of them, when they got out, they could get them a job doing that kind of work. And my job was to drive an old car that we had back and forth to town, picking up supplies and taking them in to the doctor and to the barber and different places they had to go. That was my job. So I kept on the road all the time, and she stayed at the camp and cooked, and we felt real at home there. We stayed there 2 years, and we had an urge, a hankering to work with children. She'd been a school teacher for so many years, and I'd worked with children in Sunday school for so many years, and we wanted to work with children. So we decided we'd try to find us a place that we could have a foster home. So stayed at the camp for about 2 years, from 71 to 73. Then we moved into town and went to the First Baptist Church in Okeechobee, a big church. And we let it be known around there we'd be looking for a place that we could have a foster home. And the man that was the president of the bank there talked to me, and he said, if you find a place that we got a nice big two-story house that we're going to have to demolish to make a parking lot for our new bank, and if you find a place that you can put it, we'll give you the house. So I started right away looking, and we were staying in a trailer in town at the time, and we found a place about 15 miles out in the country. We went to 2 or 3 different ways, but nowhere could we get a permit to take a big house like that because it was so wide. It hung 8 feet off of both sides of the highway. So this was the only road, that was Highway 98, that had a big wide right-of-way on both sides. So we got okay to put the house on an acre of land 15 miles out of town. And then we found a man that said he would move the big house. I got pictures of it. They had to cut it in half and to move it. And he said he'd been moving houses for the Army for a long time, and he'd move it for me if that's what I wanted to do. So I told the man at the bank, and he said, well, how much is it going to cost you? I said, $25,000, and I don't even have $1,000 right now. He said, if you're going to have a home for children, I'll loan you the $25,000 and I'll give you the house. Well, I couldn't believe it could be any better than that. So he did, and I had the man to come out there, and he brought about 12 men with him to help him. They would go under the big house and jack it up, cut it in half, and took the first half of it and took it 15 miles out in the country. Had to spend 2 nights on the road, could only go about 7 or 8 miles an hour, and had policemen in front driving and running cars off in the grass to go around the house, and had 3 bridges to go across, and we had to lean the house up sideways to get it over the edge of the bridge. But we got half of it out here, and they went back and got the other half, and he just said, don't put them right together, leave a little space and we'll have a breezeway. So we left about 20 feet between the 2 halves of the house, and we got it set up, and it took about 3 weeks to set the thing down, and we let it be known to the children's people that we wanted a foster home. And before we could get to the septic tank and get hooked up, we had a trailer. Before we could get the septic tank hooked, the woman brought us 3 children out there. One was 10, one 12, and one 13. And I said, well, we're not quite ready. She said, well, they got to have a place. I have no place to take them. So we let them stay there and stay in the house with no water or nothing. And we had to come out to the cabin, to the camper, and that's where they used the toilet. And then they had to take the toilet out and had to dug a hole, dump it in. They didn't have no bathroom. So, well, that's the way we got started. And we had Frank, and he was 12 years old, and Kenny was 10, and Jimmy was 13. That was the first 3 children that we had. And Jimmy stayed with us for 5 years, and Frank stayed 5 years, and Kenny, the youngest one, he had just had his 10th birthday the day before that, and he stayed till he was 18 years old. And none of them was real sharp with schoolwork, but Edith was a school teacher, and so she taught them all the things they needed to know, and I taught them all the things they needed to know. They couldn't use any bad language or smoke or use tobacco any way, and they couldn't do any drinking or not to hobble around with anybody that did. And they had to ride a school bus to go back and forth to town, and they were going to behave themselves on the bus. So we started off pretty good. It wasn't long, it brought us 2 more children. And then we had everything hooked up. So we had the kids all living upstairs, and we lived downstairs, and we had Ginger. I always call her Little Ginger. She was just 4 years old then. We'd had her 2 years already. So Ginger, but to start off with, when we first got Ginger, I had to beat her to the bathroom. She hadn't learned how to go potty much yet. And I said, go potty, and she'd start, and I'd get down on my hands and knees and try to beat her to the bathroom, but she generally got in there first. So that's how she learned to go potty. So when we got out there, and she was the youngest one of the bunch. She was just 4. And then we took a boy and his sister. She was 6. So we had a thing going out there we had the foster children for 10 years. And we had 32 children altogether in the 10 years. And we went to the little Brethren Church about 5 miles away from home. And we took them. And then as the crowd got bigger, the 13-year-old boy got to be 15. I got him a learner's driving permit, taught him how to drive, got another old car, and on Sunday, be so many we couldn't all get in one car. We had 2 cars full of kids and us to go to church, and several of them were real interested and old enough that they could understand, and they accepted the Lord, and they were baptized in a little pond across the road from the church. I have pictures of some of them being dipped out of the pond, and they thought that was the greatest thing. I don't know whatever happened to the pictures, but I got them in my mind. But that's the way we did, and for 10 years. And then Edith had this breast cancer, and she had to give up the school. But she started the kindergarten with 3 kids, and in the next year they didn't want to go to school to the 1st grade, so they stayed there for 1st grade, and we took some more kindergartners. And in about 3 or 4 years, we had 20 kids in our school, in the meeting in the breezeway between the 2 houses, and we had to get a lady to come and help Edith with the children. And we put up a swimming pool, and every evening after school, if it behaved itself, they could go swimming. And we got enough water in there to learn how to swim. And I told the mothers, they're going to come over tomorrow, Friday, and you see the kids swim. So the mothers leaned on the railing and watched the kid jump off in that water and says, he can't swim, he can't swim. And the kid dived right on in, go across the pool and come up on the other side. And they were so proud. But that was the way we had a life going. And that was for 10 years with the foster children. And then we had to give up most of them. We kept 2 or 3. We always kept little Ginger. They couldn't let her go nowhere. And we have one other little girl there with us so they could talk to each other. Well, that's the way. And then when Edith had to go to Gainesville for her cancer, she took Ginger and the other little girl with her and stayed at David McGregor's mother's house. And Edith would walk them to school and go back and get them in the afternoon. So that's the way it worked out. And it turned out a lifetime of good times. And I know where very few of the children are now, but we hear from them once in a while. And one girl was 7 years old when she was here, and she called up, and Gar answered the phone, and she said, now Gar that was short for Grandma, and she said, is this Gar? And he said yes, and the girl told her name. She said, I'm living in St. Lucie, and I'm married, and I got 3 children, and I thought you were dead a long time ago. Said, you were old when I lived out there when I was 7 years old. Now I'm 27 years old. Gar said, well, I'm not dead yet. So she said, I want to bring my husband out and show him the big house that I lived in. And Edith wasn't feeling very well, so she told her, well, not for a visit, she could come out and show him around. So that's the way it worked out. I guess that boat wound it up until the point now we turned the big house over to some other people that are using it for groups, church groups to come out. They had a big baseball field. They come out and practice football and so forth. And they put us up a nice 2-bedroom, 2-bath mobile home on the same property because we knew everybody in this area and we felt like part of the family. So that's where we are today. We've been in this little mobile home now for 12 years, and we're part of the family. It made a good life for us. Now Edith, the Lord called her home about 6 months ago in March of 2005. She was 87 and I was 85. And I never could catch her, but now I'm 86, and I still can't catch her. She's gone. But I'll catch her one day. One of these days I'll catch her. In the meantime, we still have little Ginger hooked on the hook. And of all things, would you ever believe it? She got married. She waited a little while. She was 34 years old before she got married, but she finally made it. So I guess now we'll start having great-great-grandchildren before too long. She promised me it'd be at least a year before she had two. So I guess that's the way it wound up, and that's all I got to tell you now. Goodbye.